that's almost one reason why I, did the Colorado Trail initially and why I'm doing something like this. Like, I don't have a doubt that I can't do it physically, but I like proving to myself that I can do hard things.
Yeah.
And that I don't do it for anyone else. I just do it for myself. Be like, this is going to be scary. This is going to be hard. This is going to be lonely. But I'm going to come out the other end and say, I did this, and this is how it shaped me to be a better person.
For me personally, also. You're a saint. The Doing the Work podcast is brought to you by some amazing sponsors who we're very grateful for that allow us to do this amazing podcast that brings you information that helps you to be more connected and be more healthy and helps you grow in your life. Here's the thing that a lot of people don't know about fitness and strength and conditioning. They think that the harder you work in the gym, the more you crush yourself, the more weight you're lifting, the faster you go, the better you're going to get. And actually, that doesn't follow science. What follows science is that when you are in the gym or you're doing your training, you're actually breaking down, which means that you're dipping below where you were before. You're essentially causing trauma to your body. And the only way that we actually get better is to compensate for that breakdown and to recover better. So that's what Strive Human Optimization is all about. It's about helping you to recover better and more effectively so that you can continue to train hard and you can continue to get better, in whether that be in your strength training or your endurance training or just your general wellness. They've got things like cold plunges, infrared saunas, compression therapy, and a lot more that's going to help you to continue to make progress in and outside of the gym. So if you're interested in that, check them out at www.shobashdrop.com. That's www.shobashdrop.com. All right, I am here with Molly Donahue, who I am totally excited to be having a conversation with. She went to Syracuse University. She rode there. She went on to go to be a medical officer in the Army. You have then gone on to be a nurse out in the civilian world. And she is an adventurer and just all around amazing lady and just kind of a wild spirit. And so you've got some really cool stuff coming up soon. And I wanted to get you on the show to talk about it. And I just really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Athan.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you, I kind of gave a little bit of a description of what you've done, but like when someone asks you like, who you are, what you do you have like kind of like an elevator speech?
Yeah, like Cliff Notes.
Okay.
So, grew up in California, Santa Barbara, but wanted something totally different for college. So yeah, I went to Syracuse. Wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do after graduation. I have a degree in exercise physiology. Thought I might go the physical therapy route, which is what my dad was, and decided to kind of just get a job right out of college, and I ended up getting a job as a medical assistant. Loved working with the nurses there, so that was my inspiration to go back to school for nursing. I did an accelerated bachelor's program at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh and commissioned as an officer in the Army right out of nursing school. 2010, I commissioned and spent 7 years in the Army, various places doing all sorts of fun Army, most trauma, ER type stuff. And then got out in 2017 and kind of been working as a civilian in various places and things, all sorts of different focuses, mostly sticking with ER. Have done some flight nursing and during COVID did some COVID contracts, travel nursing around the country. So just most recently doing flight, including search and rescue and hoist operations and fire suppression and stuff in Washington County here.
Yeah, which is such a cool and unique opportunity. Like as a nurse, very few people get to go do that.
Yeah, I had the past 2 years during COVID, like I said, had been kind of traveling around the country, but I had flown previously and I really missed it. And this opportunity came in Texas that allowed me to move back to Austin after being gone for about 4 years. And yeah, I never thought I'd have the opportunity to do that kind of stuff as a nurse, but really cool. So
yeah, I got to see some of the training that you posted on social
the
media.
water rescue stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, what was that like for you? Like, you know, having to do that type of training? And
it was so up my alley for wanting to, I was getting paid to put on a dry suit and get thrown into the canal and get washed away into some, low head dam, trying to pull someone out, like I've never thought in a million years that would be my job. But I loved it. And I'm bummed that I'm not doing it right now. Unfortunately, the base that I was at recently closed. So I'm so glad I had that opportunity and hopefully can continue to do it down the road. But for right now, just not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I think it's clearing a path for some other really cool and amazing things, which we'll definitely jump into on this episode. When I say the word adventure, what is that? Like, what do you think of?
I think that it's going to be different for everyone else. My, type 2 adventure is type 2 fun, a lot of people say, is not going to be the same type of adventure as someone else, would strive for or try and get to. I think an adventure is something that may not be in your comfort zone, but that you end up realizing that it betters you in some way, whether it may not be comfortable while you are doing it, but it's something that may not be the norm or that people don't always understand, but that it betters you as a person down the road.
Yeah. You said type 2 fun. I'm not really familiar with that that term. What does that mean?
What I say, I'm going to go, do this hike, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. For me, that's an adventure and that's fun. I wouldn't say that is the type of fun that everyone likes to have. People say, I'm going to go have fun. I'm going to go on a vacation to Hawaii and sit on a beach all day.
Mm-hmm. What type is that? Is that type 1 fun?
Type 1 fun.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. It's different than your average fun, I would say. But yeah.
Yeah, because that's me, right? I identify. I think the reason why I'm so drawn to like your spirit is because when I think of vacation, when I think of taking time off, I think of doing something kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I've thought like many times like chartering a boat and just like basically go and like live like a pirate for a couple weeks or something like that. Like not sitting on a beach or next to a pool.
Oh, I love that too. Don't worry.
Well, to me that doesn't sound fun at all. Like sitting
really?
Not at all.
I think I can do that in little bits, but definitely not for a long sustained period of time. And I think that there has to be something else involved with that kind of vacation or fun in order to make it enjoyable for me. I think, also talking about adventure, I tend to put myself in situations that maybe are just, I don't want to say, they're not always dangerous, but they are not your everyday 9 to 5, show up to work, show up to, your vacation, show up to this or that. Like when I chose to start doing COVID contracts, like immediately when COVID hit, I had a lot of pushback from people on that in terms of mostly my parents.
Yeah.
And that's just worry. And I understand that. But, because this was something that, I went to Detroit in April of 2020 when, everything hit the fan and we didn't know anything about COVID and how it spread, what it would do. We just knew people were dying in droves. And I saw that as an opportunity, not to like go and prove myself or prove anything to anyone, I was in a situation that, I don't have any kids. At the time, I didn't have any pets. I didn't have anyone to come home to every day or be responsible for, and so if this was something that I could let that nurse that doesn't want to expose their kids or their family to something that we know nothing about, I'll show up and I'll go do that. And I just see it as something I can contribute.
Right.
And I think that was, a path I also took going into the Army, was that I have this chance to serve. I have this chance to try and, make this country a better place, or, do something along those lines. And I think that is also an adventure in a way, of just being able to do something a little different that not everyone can or is willing to do.
Yeah. Do you feel like, your profession, some of the things you do, even recreationally, do you feel like it's somehow attached to some sort of calling or a purpose, or, have you spent any time identifying that for yourself? Or
I haven't put much time in my reason or my why, because I've just felt that it is a calling that I'm able to do physically, mentally, that not everyone can. And whatever the reasoning behind that is, I don't dive too deep into that, but I love that I'm able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I recently reread Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, or something along those lines. And he was talking about prisoners being in a prisoner camp, and how many of them died of a broken heart, and so on and so forth. And his kind of thing that he brought up was that there's still something that the world needs from you. The reason why people didn't, just kind of the ones who kind of stuck around, it's having this feeling that there's something that you're supposed to do for the world, or something like that. I mean, do you feel that way at all? Or, is that not something?
I think that I try and avoid thinking in that sense, and I just do it.
Yeah.
I have nothing stopping me.
Yeah.
And I know that other people that may want to do the kind of things that I do, whether it be my job, whether it be the kind of, adventures I take or things that I do, there's people that want to do that. I have a lot of people that tell me oh, I'm living vicariously through, your adventures and all this. And for whatever reason, they can't, or they don't, or they won't. But I have been blessed for whatever reasons that, I have, that I'm able to do these things.
Yeah.
And maybe for longevity of life and happiness, I don't know if this is the right path, but it's the path I'm taking, and I plan on continuing to take.
Yeah. To be clear, everyone can do the things that you do. They choose not to. Yeah. And that's a clear distinction, right? It's just people who say, I can't, I could never, I can't do that. And they'll give you some sort of reason why. And to them, that's a real reason.
Yeah.
But the truth is that you choose to do this, you can do it, and you choose to do it. Have you always been this way? Have you always kind of been, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the first word that came to my mind was kind of wild, or kind of adventuresome, or
No, not always. I don't know. I had relatively strictish parents growing up. They always encouraged me to, go to school across the country, and, although my mother wasn't happy when I joined the Army, they both always supported that decision. And even though, I think some of the choices that I make when it comes to friends and family, there's not a lot of understanding. Everyone's always been supportive, but I don't know, my childhood was great, and I didn't seek a lot of adventure or I would say, I didn't become an avid rock climber as a child or do this. I had a pretty standard, straight path of, athletics and college and all this. And I think kind of joining the Army out of college opened my eyes a little bit to more opportunities that, okay, I do have a little bit of this in me that I want to do. And if I could just let it sit there and pass, but I'm going to take advantage of what I'm given.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how that happens for people. It's like, you have an experience, you do a thing, and it ignites something inside of you that you didn't even know was there.
I would say that my turning point was probably joining the military and kind of just seeing those kinds of opportunities.
Yeah. Were there people that kind of like sparked that for you, or was it just kind of like the process?
I think it was the process of like, putting decisions about my life into someone else's hands, in terms of, where my duty station was going to be. Probably the turning point would be that I really wanted to deploy when I was in the Army. I was a pretty new nurse. I'd only been a nurse for about a year and a half. And the Army started putting out basically recruiting for these cultural support teams, which was basically a group of women that were attached to special forces units and going to these deployment, areas that were, very dangerous. And it was this new program that the Army was kind of putting out. And, we were getting emails about it, and I was like, yeah, that kind of sounds cool. Like, a little different than what I would do. So I responded. And at that time, so this was 2010, 2011, they weren't allowing nurses to go. At that point, it kind of got in my head of okay, I can't go do this, but we are still deploying to, Afghanistan. I think we're out of Iraq at that point, pretty much. But so I just hassled my commander, basically hey, if there's an opportunity to deploy, give it to me. If there's an opportunity to deploy, I'll take it. And it paid off that, I got a slot with a combat support hospital and got to deploy as a pretty baby fresh nurse. But that shaped me a lot in my career path of doing ER and trauma. Cause I had just been working on med surg as a brand new nurse, and then get hauled off to a small role 2 in Afghanistan and basically got to see everything. So
yeah,
that guided me in that sense for sure.
Sure. Once you've kind of had that kind of experience, you have a choice at that point. You can decide, I never want to do anything like that again. Or you can say I've got, it kind of breeds something inside of you that, maybe, like I said earlier, you didn't even know was there.
I think that was probably my turning point in getting, to go to Afghanistan as a pretty new nurse and feeling like I thrived there. I thrived in that kind of environment, and enjoy it. And people always, I had a very different, I will preface it by saying I had a very different deployment than probably you have had, and
probably not.
Many people have had. But that being said, it definitely put me in a place of okay, this is where I belong, this kind of situation. So.
Yeah. Well, we need both kind of people out there. We need people who are willing to kind of charge into situations like that, and we need people who stay home and stay safe and keep things going back here. So I'm very grateful for people like you who wanted to do it and chose to do it and went out there. So it kind of developed this sense of adventure, wanting to have these new experiences. And really one of the biggest reasons that I wanted to have you on the show is that you're planning this upcoming, I called it adventure, but
it's totally an adventure.
It's adventure. So tell me a little bit about what you're planning, what you're going to do. You, like you said, you've taken advantage of your post kind of closed down.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. So basically, So I moved back to Austin in like 7 months ago. Super stoked on this job, and it was fantastic. The time that I did get to spend there, and something totally out of my control and the control of my coworkers. Our base is closed, so basically I had this choice of, all right, what do I do now? I'm very happy being back in Austin. I've been kind of between COVID deployments and this and that. Like, I've kind of been all over the place, which I also love. Like, I haven't stayed in one place for more than a couple years for a while. And that's usually like my safe space is not being at home in one place. But I'm very glad to be back in Austin. So I kind of was like, all right, what am I going to do now? So, I've been a nurse for 12 years, and with my background, no difficulty in getting a job at one of the local ERs. But in 2018, when I was working as a travel nurse, and I can't remember what actually like sparked this, need for an adventure, but as a travel nurse, basically you work for 3 months and a contract ends, and you usually pick up another one either right away or you can take some time off. And in that time off in between contracts in 2018, I hiked the Colorado Trail. So that's about 580 miles from Denver to Durango. And it was, I call it my wild moment. Have you read the book Wild or seen the movie?
No.
So basically this woman like gets divorced, has zero backpacking experience, whatever, and packs up her mom dies. She's just going through all these life things. She packs up a, backpack and goes and hikes the Pacific Crest Trail. And it's a great book. You should read it. And I kind of had been through a lot the past couple of years prior. And I was like, you know what, this is something like I could do. And 580 miles, it took me 30 days. So, taking a month off of work is doable. It's not taking 6 months off of work and doing a 2,000 mile trail. I was like, okay, this is something to do. So I did that and I loved it. Most of the time, obviously you have your days that you just want to be in a bed or have a shower or not be stuck in the rain for 48 hours or this or that. But I came out of that experience like, all right, when can I go on my next hike? And between COVID and life and everything, I didn't think that I'd have this opportunity again. So when I have this sudden, unexpected break in employment, I decided that I'm going to try another thru hike. So the Arizona Trail had kind of been on my radar. It's not one of the big three, which is Pacific Crest Trail, Appalachian Trail, and Continental Divide Trail. All three are about 2,000 plus miles each. Take 4 to 6 months, a huge commitment in your life. And so the Arizona Trail is like, all right, let me see if this is possible. So kind of did some research and basically figured that if I can start by the first or second week of April, it's not going to be too hot, because that's the biggest thing is heat in Arizona, is that the further north you get, the hotter it's going to be, So the Arizona Trail is about 780 miles. It starts at the Mexican border near Sierra Vista and ends at Utah, near Page, Arizona. So goes through all sorts of different climates, areas of Arizona. You go South Rim to North Rim in the Grand Canyon. And yeah, so kind of got the wheels turning once, like, I'm not kidding, like 3 days after we got the news that our base was closing, I was like, all right, I'm starting to plan.
Yeah.
Do it.
So what goes into planning for something like that? Like, I've done, I think in my case, most of my adventures were kind of planned for me. I was kind of told what to bring.
Yeah.
I was told where I was going. I was told everything, because it was all kind of military based. I haven't really done anything like that on my own. And so I'm extremely curious, because I think I've mentioned many times on this show, but to most people who will listen to me, I've got this deep desire to like go an adventure, like do something solo, go do something a little crazy.
Yeah.
And when I heard you doing it, I was like, okay, I've got questions. So what goes into the planning in something like this?
Really, luckily with everything these days, social media is extremely helpful in this planning because you're not the first person to do this. Hundreds and hundreds of people have done it over the years. And with social media these days, like people are recording it and putting it out there,
Yeah.
I mean, even years ago, there was blogs that people would do. Now it's more a lot of Instagram types, but that's been a really helpful source in just getting ideas. If you're starting from zero, like hop on Instagram or just Google, Arizona Trail through hike. And a lot of people chronicle their journey on it.
Yeah.
So, gear is kind of one of the top big things is if you've never done any kind of big backpacking trip or hiking trip or anything, getting a solid tent, backpack, and like sleep system is like the big three that you have to get. And that's just kind of, some of it's trial and error. Some of it's, people have recommendations for XYZ, but really it's just going to REI and, talking to someone there and trying a few things out and figuring out what works, what doesn't work. And you figure a lot out on the trail, but just starting with those three and then working from there in terms of all the little things that you use when you're doing a hike like this.
Yeah. Like, give me an example of some little things that you've got to plan on bringing.
Well, food isn't a little thing, but it's it's actually the most heavy thing in my bag. But figuring out resupplies for food, again, certain blogs, social media things are really helpful in, and most of these big trails have foundations or nonprofit groups that. The Arizona Trail Foundation puts out a ton of great info on what to expect in each segment and, how far the town is that you can resupply at. But it's also figuring out like your physical capacity of what you can carry and for how long you can carry it for. Little things I would say, I don't know, like, I can't even think right now. Like, it's basically what do you use on a daily basis that you need and what do you use on a daily basis that you don't need.
Right.
And, you think you need a shower every day. Well, that's not going to be possible. So what do? You carry baby wipes and hope for the best, and hope you don't have to hug anyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, a little thing. Where are you going to go to the bathroom? Well, nature is where you go to the bathroom, but there's things about it like leave no trace is really important, especially if we want to keep these trails available to everyone. Like, picking up every little plastic thing from all the food you use, every piece of toilet paper, you carry that with you.
Yeah.
So even though your bag gets lighter because you don't have as much food or you don't have as much water, your trash bag that you also have to carry along and hope that some next trailhead has a garbage can that you can put your stuff in. But I've gone days without garbage cans, you just little things like that you don't think about.
Right.
Every little piece of trash that you accumulate in a day, you carry with you.
So so with all this stuff that you're carrying, like what do you estimate like the weight of your pack to be?
Generally, so I don't go super ultra light. There's, hundreds of different hikers that, try and get the lightest bag possible. They cut off the handle of their toothbrush so that they save that half an ounce.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not that type. But I would say dry, my bag is probably 30 to 35 pounds, maybe more.
Yeah.
In Arizona, the most thing I'm worried about in terms of my journey on it is water. Most people's journeys worry about this in Arizona. just the first, 200 miles or so, there's very frequent stretches that there's no water for about 30 miles.
Wow.
In 100-degree heat.
Yeah.
So my plan is to wake up early, get as many miles as I can in before it gets too hot. Hopefully find some shade midday, siesta, take a little nap until it gets a little cooler, and hike into the evening, into the night. And then water-wise, just carry probably 5 to 6 liters as much as I can. But like when I say that there's, water sources 30 miles apart, that water source is you're sharing it with cows. Like this is like, I'm not joking.
Yeah.
There's cows that you literally are filling up, and it's disgusting water. And so a filter is obviously really important on this trip. In Colorado, I only used iodine tabs, which is not common, but I only also took flowing water, and I never had any issues with that. So this is going to be stagnant, warm cow water that I will be drinking.
Awesome. I've had a few moments like that in my life.
Yeah.
So the trail itself, is it easily followed? Is it something that, is it, I can't even picture it in my mind, but is it something that it's not hard to kind of stay on course, to navigate?
Yeah, there's, it's pretty easy. It's well cut out. I think maybe 100 or so people through hike it a year. And then there's access to some of the bigger cities in Arizona. So Flagstaff, Tucson's not far. So people come in for day hikes as well.
Sure.
So it's well paved. You can always get lost on some little horse track here or there. But again, there's some great sources that I have GPS maps that it can alert me when I'm off trail if I want to set that. But
yeah.
In general, it's not going to be difficult.
Yeah. And so when you get to those towns, like you said, you'll resupply, you'll kind of refit. Do you plan on, staying overnight any of those places, or even staying for multiple nights, or how does that all play out?
So generally, so a couple things. Resupplies can kind of go both ways. I am sending 3 boxes, I believe, to some of the smaller towns where there's maybe 100 miles in between major towns. And that's really only because, and this is for food, I could probably do the whole thing without sending these boxes, but the resupplies in some of these smaller towns are like a general store or a gas station that choices might not be as plentiful as something that, and running out of food, something I don't even want to play with. And so I always carry too much, and I want to have stuff that I choose, at least for a little bit. I'm not crazy picky, but I like having that option.
Yeah, I'm envisioning like MREs. Like, what are you bringing for food?
A variety of stuff. So I do have some freeze-dried camping meals, that you can get at REI or whatever. I actually did the Colorado Trail stoveless, so I only did cold soaking and cold whatever. So my staples are like tuna, jerky, instant mashed potatoes, peanut butter, tortillas are like the life-saving vessel for all things. Yeah, pretty much. There's other and then just like snacks, trail mix, nuts. I'm planning on averaging about 15 to 20 miles a day. Some days more, some days less. But basically, for these town resupplies, there's going to be some places that I will go into town for the day, resupply, go to a grocery store if they have one, and maybe stop at a restaurant, get some pizza, get some real food, and then get right back on the trail and continue. But you get to a point that you will pay whatever it takes to just have a shower or just have a bed for a night.
Yeah.
When I did the Colorado Trail, generally those days were after I had really bad weather days where I got caught in like some really gnarly storms or just was soaked to the bone and all I wanted was like dry clothes. Laundry also, like if I just get desperate for laundry, I can go into town and spend a day. But generally, like so those days are generally, they called them 0 days or Nero days, which is if it's a day that you do 0 miles, you get to town the day before, you spend the night at a hotel or, whatever, and you do nothing that day, that's a 0 day. Generally, I don't take too many total 0 days. I'm going to take a couple, I think, in Flagstaff, because that's like it's past 500, I think. So I'll be definitely ready for a little 0 day on that. But generally, if I'll take a 0 day or a Nero day, which is like I'll camp 3, 4, 5 miles from town and then sleep in, wander in town that day, spend the night there that day, and then leave first thing the next morning.
Yeah. You said you send boxes. Where do you send boxes to?
Generally post office. You can mail a box and they'll hold it. You address it, general delivery, and with your name on it, and they'll hold it for 30 to 60 days. And it'll just be waiting there. So the only problem with resupplying that way, like relying on resupplies that way, is you don't know what day you're going to show up in town. And if it's on a weekend or a Sunday, post office won't be open and you have to wait for the next day. So because these small towns in Arizona or in Colorado too, they know that through hikers are, coming through. A lot of the businesses, you can mail boxes to like the pizza place in town and they'll hold on to it. Yeah. You just like put your approximate date of when you think you'll be getting there and they'll just hold on to it. These small towns have these amazing communities of supporters for hikers. They call them trail angels, basically. Like they leave coolers of beverages like a few miles from town just so you have something. People are really supportive and are really great. And
wow.
In Arizona, a lot of these trail angels actually go to they drive to the remote trailheads that are nowhere near towns. So they spend hours of their time to leave water through hikers because they know that what they're encountering. So it's a really cool concept. And
that's crazy. It's so cool and nice to know that there are people out there that.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And it also, I think, gives, because the thing that's on my mind is fear, right? I think the reason why most people would never even consider, not even remotely doing, even a couple days of hiking, staying over would probably freak a lot of people out. For decent reasons, can they do it physically? Do they know what they're doing? Do they know how, what if all the what ifs? You get into a survival situation. What if there's a bad guy out there? What if, whatever. You can imagine all kinds of things. And I'm curious, you mentioned that not getting water is one thing that you're afraid of. And, but are you afraid of anything on this walk?
When I decided I was going to do the Colorado Trail, one of the things that I knew I would encounter was something I've had a fear of for a long time. So for some reason, since childhood, as long as I can remember, and I always thought I would grow out of it, but I really never did, was I don't want to say irrational, because I don't always think it's irrational, fear of getting struck by lightning. I hate thunderstorms. I hate being outside in thunderstorms. But mine's not just I don't like to be hiking when it's thundering and lightning. I don't like to be outside when there's a thunderstorm, always. And I'm almost 40 years old. This is still a thing. So anyway, being in Colorado in the summer, there's daily thunderstorms, and I'm hiking 10, 11,000 feet, So I knew this was something I was going to encounter. And I knew I was going to have to face it pretty much. And it's my first few days on the trail, sure enough, afternoon rolls in, big clouds start rolling in. hear thunder from a distance, like, and immediately like my anxiety kind of like kicks in. And I started like obsessing about it, kind of like, okay, this storm's rolling in, which way are the clouds coming? Like, is the storm coming towards me? I'm going up in elevation. Should I stop here? Should I not, should I set up camp now? I've only put in 10 miles. Like, what should I do? And I found myself, like obsessing about it and fearing about it. And I kind of had to like have a come to Jesus moment of like, all right, you're not even going to enjoy this experience if you're going to continue this. So I ended up like having a little heart to heart with myself and just being like, I had a little mantra that I kind of like would say as I was going encountering these storms was like, don't worry about it until it's something to worry about. Mm-hmm. And there were times that I had to worry about it. I got caught in a thunderstorm on like a lightning storm, like literally lightning striking all around me at 12,000 feet.
Wow.
So
talk about confronting your fears.
It was funny. So
exposure therapy.
I did the Colorado Trail like probably 80% solo. You find other thru hikers, especially certain months that it's popular to do these hikes. But mostly I was by myself. This particular day of this particular bad storm, I just happened to be, I was leapfrogging with these 3 Canadian guys that like, one day I'd pass them and then they'd pass me. And we were doing this for about 3 days. But this day in particular, we just all happened to be going together. We were like on the same ridge. So I was like with these 3 guys. And I actually think that kept me from like totally going crazy because I was like, well, this guy's taller than me. So if we get struck by lightning, it's going to hit him first.
Yeah, it's like the whole thing. You don't have to be able to outrun a bear. Yeah, exactly. You just have to be able to outrun the other guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, situations like that. So, I 100% like encountered that fear and I think it built some character in me, and I'm not saying I still like going outside in thunderstorms, but I definitely don't have as much, anxiety about it.
Yeah.
Which is silly. But in terms of things I know I'm going to encounter or potentially encounter on this trip, wildlife is a little bit more of a concern. Rattlesnakes are rampant there. And it's just being situationally aware. Like,
yeah,
I'm real bad about like throwing my headphones in a full blast and just like tooting along. But I know like I can't do that here because I could potentially step on a rattlesnake and, and there are mountain lions and there are bears and all sorts of critters. But you know what? They were there before I got there, so I just got to be aware and smart. And I never had any major fears of other people. I've never, in Colorado, I never encountered one person that I got bad vibes from.
Right.
I'm not saying it can't happen, but it can also happen walking down the street in Austin. You're probably more likely to happen walking down the street in Austin. Sure.
No, I really don't think there's too many, sure, there's like psychopaths out there in the world.
100%.
And it's possible that they may try to plot some sort of thing on a trail. But for the most part, criminals and psychopaths and sociopaths and all that stuff, they're
I think we're the psychopaths for kind of going out.
Yeah, they're not messing with this stuff. And there's way more opportunities in other places.
So, for that reason, I know some people do, carry a sidearm on these situations. I don't, just because I think like I would be more uncomfortable with it than feeling safe with it.
Sure.
But I'll have my pepper spray. I did carry bear spray in Colorado. I'm still debating whether I'm going to bring that along with me or not.
Yeah. And one thing, this is a great opportunity for me to advocate for one thing that a couple things that you do that I think is massively important for all people, no matter if you're going to go on an adventure like you're going on or not. But number one, you are physically fit. In fact, I met you because through fitness. So you work on your strength. You have the ability to run. You can run fast. You can run long. You are physically strong. If you had to do anything, not just a person, but if you had to climb up a steep cliff
Yeah.
or something like that. And the other thing that I'll mention that you do that I think all other people need to do is that you practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I think all people need to learn how to grapple. They need to learn some sort of method of being able to handle themselves if there's a situation in which someone puts their hands on you. Right. And I think that's really smart on your part, and you're going to probably fare far better than a lot of other
bust
people.
My shoulder like I did 2
Yeah,
months ago.
yeah. But you will survive that situation.
No, and getting into jiu-jitsu, one of the things that I found very helpful was I had done combatives in the Army,
right.
and like getting those hands on 100% is it empowers you in other ways rather than just like, oh, I have my gun, I'm okay.
Right.
Like you're not always going to be put in a situation that you can defend yourself that way. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've talked about this in other episodes, but like the fact that you're even you have a level of confidence and going on something like this that, like, again, most people will not do a trip like this for hundreds of reasons, and you've done things in your life to create some confidence why you aren't using those as excuses why you can't go do this. And I think that's really important. You physically, you mentioned to me earlier before we got on the show, I know I'm physically able to do this, and there's a large part of the population who do not feel that way about themselves.
Yeah.
So
yeah, regardless of what path I take, with my adventures from here on out, staying physically fit is always going to be one of the top priorities in my life, because it allows you to do so much more with every aspect of your life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a gateway to so much. And, obviously as your vessel is more tuned, you get to enjoy everything around you better when you're just more dialed in physically. Your relationships are better, your work life's better, everything's better. One thing that one of the reasons why I'm desire to go do something like you've done on these trips that you've gone on is the opportunity to be alone, which is actually when I think of fear, one of the things I'm afraid of, because being alone with myself and my thoughts, to me, is scary. I tend to busy myself with tasks. I tend to just surround myself with people so I don't have to deal with myself. Yeah. And I'm curious with you, what is like, you've been on a trip like this already and you're about to embark on another one. Are there thoughts about aloneness? Like, do you seek, some people desire, like they like it that way.
Yeah.
So I'm just, I'm curious about your thoughts on aloneness.
I feel like I'm this mix, I'm not an introvert or an extrovert. I love being social. I love having friends and, doing group activities and stuff, but I definitely seek those alone times for sure. I think I do seek discomfort in certain ways, and being alone can be very uncomfortable in certain situations, especially this kind of situation where, like I said, when I was in this scary, almost getting struck by lightning situation, I was glad I had someone else there. But the fact that, I know I'm not going to have someone to talk to or to comfort me or to have these when I am uncomfortable or scared, or, I hear sticks breaking, while I'm trying to sleep. The fact that I don't have someone to be like, hey, what is that? Or, I have to figure that out myself. It is difficult, but it also, when you come out of it on the other end, you realize how much more you can do. Yeah. Things that you don't think that you can do. Yeah. And I think that that's almost one reason why I, did the Colorado Trail initially, and why I'm doing something like this. I don't have a doubt that I can't do it physically, but I like proving to myself that I can do hard things. Yeah. And that I don't do it for anyone else. I just do it for myself. Be like, this is going to be scary. This is going to be hard. This is going to be lonely. But I'm going to come out the other end and say, I did this, and this is how it shaped me to be a better person.
Yeah. Yeah, well, actually, you recommended to me The Comfort Crisis, which I was completely enthralled with. It's a book by Michael Easter. Anyone who's listening, pick that book up and read it. You recommended it to me. I devoured it in like a very short amount of time. And he goes through several different concepts of, being uncomfortable, you know, and for different reasons and all these other things. And one of the, and I'm going to mess up the term, but it's the misogi.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it correctly.
Planning something that you got a 50-50 shot of, doing something hard.
Yeah.
For no other reason than doing something hard, and also dealing with the failure, like the way that in that concept he talked about, it's like he failed many times, and the ones that he's done, other people do too, and having to deal with failure brings us just as much growth as, in fact, probably more growth than finishing something that you already knew you could probably do anyway.
Yeah, and that's like I don't even consider this
that
because. I mean, of course, there's a chance I can fail. Of course, there's a chance I can, run out of water and end up in the hospital, or get bit by a rattlesnake, or fall and break my ankle and not complete this thing, or just be lonely and tired and decide, all right, F it, I'm done.
Fuck it, I'm done. Yeah.
But one of the other things about that he mentioned is that it's not something that you share with anyone else. It's just for you. You don't put it on social media. You don't talk about, you can talk about it, but you don't promote it. You don't share it. It's just something you do for you. There's a chance, one of the two rules is make it hard and don't die.
Yeah.
And that's it. And have it be like a 50-50 chance that you will either complete it or you will fail it. Mm-hmm. This is not that. But I plan on putting myself in a lot of the situations he talks about in that, of the solitude and the discomfort of not having, I'll have my phone, but I'm not going to have service, and I'm not going to have anything downloaded on it. I'm bringing a book and some music maybe I'll listen to, maybe. But even that, that is something that puts you into your little comfort zone.
Yeah.
So I usually have a rule that when I hike in the morning, I don't have headphones in until noon. I give myself that time of but then it's just more of about if I'm going to put these miles in, if I want to hit 20 miles, I need some motivation.
Yeah. I got to do something to keep me going.
I need motivation more than anything. It's not even about discomfort. It's oh my God, I just don't want to do any more miles,
Yeah, but I'm sure you're also dealing with having to conserve battery. You can't just have something,
exactly.
You're having to manage all of that. Yeah. Well, I am just freaking, I'm pumped for you. I mentioned before we got on, I'm jealous. I plan on doing something along those lines, something really hard, something really challenging, something alone.
Yeah.
For my own growth, something, that I need to do for me. It's been calling me for a long time. And so watching you do it lets me know that it's possible and I can do something similar. And so.
And that's, one of the reasons I like sharing my experiences, whether I don't share a ton on social media, but I do put it out there that I'm doing this. And, I like that people see it and make it think that it's something they can do. Because I totally believe anyone can do this, with the right motivation and putting that effort in. And so that's why I share. And because I relied on other people sharing for me to be confident enough for this to happen in my life, maybe I can be that for someone else.
Right. You're certainly doing that. And I can speak for one person for sure. And I know probably many others are watching you and being inspired. And so I'll be definitely cheering you on. And
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Come join me for part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that you put that out there. Somehow I saw that you were asking people that maybe, and I am strongly considering that. And so
you're more than welcome. Yeah. It'll be fun.
I'll have to get your itinerary and see where I can link up with you. So, okay, in closing, what I always like to do on this show, I I started this this podcast to talk to interesting people who are either experts or inspirational or anything like that. And then I like to get to know, ask one of three things. So I'm going to say three terms,
Okay.
and you pick one and say what's resonating with you, and we'll just kind of talk about it a little bit. So, optimal health,
Okay.
deep human connection, and self-actualization. When I say those words, optimal health, deep human connection, and self-actualization, which one kind of like resonates with you? Which one kind of like, well, you know, good, bad, whatever?
Probably self-actualization. Just we are all constantly changing who we are, what we believe, and the journey to figure ourselves out is going to be never ending till the day we die. But any moments that you can take that opportunity and do something to understand yourself a little more, I think is essential for overall happiness.
Yeah. So, what kinds of things do you do? I mean, I don't want to make any assumptions, given what the conversation that we just had, but what does it look like for you to become more self-actualized?
Situations that I put myself in, whether it's, you know, an adventure that I'm going to do, part of my job, what fitness route I'm taking. I always try and ask myself, like, is this the right path for me? Is this the path that is going to make me happier and benefit me more?
Yeah.
And I think you need to ask yourself that every day. And what is this doing for my life? Is this benefiting me? Is this benefiting the people I surround myself with, the people I love, the people that are important to me? And by doing that, you make yourself better and realize what makes you happy. And
Yeah, that's it's powerful what you just said, and it can't be it just can't be undervalued enough that, you know, when you are working on yourself, you are making it, you know, it sounds selfish on the surface, right? It's, you know, making it about you, it's about me. But you are in a better place to contribute and serve the world when you're at your best. And that's not selfish at all. The world needs your best. The people who you love need the best you. And it's something I struggle with personally. I, you know, based on how I grew up and like some of my experiences in life, like I default to the other all the time. And I think, you know, it's something that I'm trying to learn skill in, and is, you know, it sounds like it's hard for me to even say the words like me first or prioritizing myself or something like that. But I know it's something I need to work on. I know there's a lot of people listening to this show right now who really feel that way, that that maybe, and I think I'm in this boat, or at least until recent years, maybe I've never done anything for myself. You know, even things that like seemingly on the outside looked like it was for me. So I love that you have done many things, because you said you're trailblazing for people like me who get to see like, no, this is clearly something that, you know, because you're doing something all alone out there on a trail. Like you're not, that's something for you. And
it's
so
for
really
me, but
that.
I'm hoping that the outcome of it also helps the people that I eventually surround myself with.
Right. Right.
And I think it will. And I think it does.
Well, I love that. I'm massively grateful for you. I'm so glad that we're friends and I get to see you do these things. And I just really appreciate you being on the show and sharing your story and what you got going on.
Definitely. Thank you, Athan.